People on the internet love to complain about my opinions on video games, so to give everyone more fuel to complain about, here's my hottest take on every Mario RPG, and some of your hot takes that I'll get to at the end. So starting with Super Mario RPG, I truly do love this game. It's a very charming game that laid the foundation for Mario RPGs to come, which includes its style of turn-based combat, but I gotta say, I don't think its combat is that great. I don't know, it just never fully clicked for me. It's fairly simple, and I kind of lost interest in a lot of encounters towards the back half because the combat just didn't keep me super engaged. And it's not even like it needs to be super in-depth, but it just wasn't as satisfying for whatever reason as some other games. There's a lot of low-stat enemies mixed in with stronger ones also that just kind of makes the balancing feel off. The boss battles also were just not that interesting to me. Pretty much approach all of them the same way, and I think the bosses themselves are interesting, like the designs, like the characters themselves, but I don't know, I never really cared for the boss battles that much either. Just felt like every time I was just using Mario, Geno, and then Peach for healing, or if I wanted extra attack power, just Mario, Geno, and Bowser. So Mallow I kind of just never used, so justice for Mallow. I don't think it's bad at all. It's not like it's just mindless. There is incentive to battle, so this is far from the worst in the series. But the combat in both the original and remake is just something I never thought was amazing, but I see a lot of people praise it super highly. I just want to be clear that just because I say I like or don't like something doesn't necessarily mean that I like or dislike something in another game. This is just me going over hot takes. Like if I said Sticker Star's combat is bad, I don't think that's a hot take at all. Okay, now that we got through one game, I can explain this video a little more because YouTube watch retention in the first 30 seconds, if you know, you know. These are all just my opinions and none of them are particularly close to being facts. All just comes down to personal preference, and I'm sure all of you have plenty of hot takes that you feel very strongly about that most would disagree with, and that's okay because it would be boring if we all had the same opinions. I know that won't stop people from calling my hot takes bad, but I want to make a deal with you. If you flip out over any of my takes or even just want to comment how it's bad, fine. But you gotta give one of your hot takes in return to see how people react to that. Also, I asked for your Mario RPG hot takes in a community post, and I'll be showing some of those at the end with my opinions on them. Now subscribe because either you'll agree with me at points in this video or you'll disagree and despise me, so you gotta see my new videos to be the first one to hate on me in those. For being the start of a brand new series, Paper Mario did an incredible job just like with Super Mario RPG. There's some pretty big hot takes I'll get into in the last section of the video, but I'd say a lot of my opinions here are fairly standard. I really like it. I like Shy Guy's Toy Box. I do like the combat here, even if it is somewhat similar to Super Mario RPG, which I know I said I didn't care for that much. But anyway, while I love a lot of the character designs, bosses, and how fresh this game felt to anything at the time, I've never really cared for the partners. I think some of their designs are cool, but they're just forgotten within like an hour after you get them, sometimes even less. I don't even know if this is that hot of a take, but I see a lot of people endlessly praise them, and that's fine. But I barely even remember any of their stories, and I replayed this not that long ago. Just so like each one had some exposition thrown in at the beginning, had a very short arc, and that was it. In the Thousand Year Door, I could tell you almost all their stories. Koops wanted to find his dad who went to fight Hooktail. Madame Flurry is a retired actress who joins you to get some more attention on her. Admiral Bobbery never wanted to sail the seas again because he lost his wife until he found a letter from her. Like, do you remember like Blackluster's story? Then even beyond that, they just fade into the background after their chapter. In the Thousand Year Door, at least some of them still have some story elements like Vivian and Goombella, and they all have their own unique dialogue and nicknames they call Mario. So depending on what partner you have following you at certain moments, you'll get more personalized dialogue. I don't want it to seem like I hate these partners or anything, but they're held up very highly, and I don't know, just never been that big on them. This was the first Mario RPG I ever played, and while most people still hold it in high regard, I see a lot of people say Bowser's Inside Story is better or Dream Team is better. However, my hot take is I think this is the best Mario & Luigi game. Maybe it's nostalgia talking, but I think it's the funniest game in the series, and it's not just the jokes, but it's the weird way Fawful talks, and even a lot of the random NPCs, like the Jacola Cola guy. A lot of the slapstick humor here I always found funny. Like, you can literally see this in the opening section of the game. This even inspired one of my favorite YouTube videos, Luigi's Bad Day. My hot take isn't that it's the funniest game in the series. Like I said, I think this is the best Mario & Luigi game, and I know there's plenty of people who share that opinion, but I feel most people usually choose Bowser's Inside Story. Something else I really love here is how Mario and Luigi actually feel like distinct characters. In Brothership, for example, there's almost no distinction between Mario and Luigi, and it feels like as the series has gone on, they've started to feel more and more similar in how they play, which is a shame because it started with them feeling very different. Mario inflates with water here, Luigi gets smacked into the ground. You can switch the order they stand in, and they have different uses throughout the game. The Bean Kingdom is a ton of fun to explore, places like Woohoo University, the airport, Jacola Woods, some of my favorite in the series. I also like a lot of the gimmicks in later games, but this one didn't even need any. The combat here has always felt great to me, like the attacks have real weight and the pacing of the game is incredible. I never thought I'd get bogged down much by a long tutorial or had a section drag. It's fun pretty much the whole way through. The twist of you defeating Cackletta halfway through Far Cry 3 style was also insane. You fight Bowletta, beat her, and then she inhales Mario and Luigi and you wake up with 1 HP each because a time bomb went off next to you. And then you're just hit with the hardest boss fight in the series, arguably. Still one of the most memorable moments I have playing this series. chapters. This has always been a game with pretty few weaknesses to me, and while I love most of the other games in the series, I just cannot say I've enjoyed them as much as Superstar Saga, even though I've enjoyed them a ton, and some of them are some of my favorite games of all time. You might be hoping I say the Thousand Year Door is overrated, or the Shadow Queen is an underwhelming boss, but I'm not gonna engagement bait by lying. I might naturally work a 6-7 into a video somewhere to get a few comments on that, but I can't diss this game when I don't mean it. It is one of my favorite games ever, and it really is that good. The hot take here is actually about a specific chapter. Everyone talks about chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 8. My favorite is chapter 6, and that's the Excess Express. It's the big mystery story on a train where when someone steals a pot of stew on day 1, threatening notes get left in people's rooms, and by day 2 a briefcase full of explosives has gone missing, and everyone on the train is a suspect. Pennington, a penguin detective who calls himself the penguin with the improbably large brain, shows up and takes credit for everything you solve while calling you Luigi the whole time. I don't know, I guess maybe he's colorblind. He's easily my favorite penguin in media in the 2000s. He just mugs Happy Feet and whatever this guy's name is and surfs up. The whole chapter plays out like a detective story, and then on day 3 it suddenly turns into this giant action set piece with Smorg climbing all over the train and kidnapping all the passengers, which is just absolute cinema. This chapter doesn't have much combat outside of the stretch off the train and the one stop at the station in the middle, but it's always just been a really nice change of pace for me. I don't think it's the most fun to replay, but on a first playthrough, it really just captured my interest the most, and makes me miss when Paper Mario games had interesting characters and actual stories, because that doesn't really exist much in a lot of the modern games. After I finished Superstar Saga, I found out it had a sequel that came out a couple years earlier, because at that time it was like 2007 or 2008, which I know is basically the 90s for anyone born after 2010. And I kept trying to find it in stores, but no one had it in stock. Eventually I went to a GameStop and they had one copy left, so my journey of getting this probably helps the favorability I have on this. The time travel mechanic is one of my favorite ideas in any Mario RPG. I never knew that was a hot take until I wrote my first Mario RPG ranking like 8 years ago or so. Anyway, let me talk about it first. You're bouncing between the present Mushroom Kingdom and a past version of it, and you'll see some destroyed versions of these places, like completely destroyed. You'll see Holly Jolly Village looking like Detroit, or Toadwood Forest completely drained, or the whole kingdom in ruins, just like Detroit. This game is way darker than most people remember, and the Shroobs are great villains. If this was made in like 2016, the villains would be Shy Guys and Koopa Troopas and spaceships. The Shroobs are actually some of my favorite in the series. Like, they took over the entire Mushroom Kingdom. The locations in the past are some of the best designed in the series, and because of that, Yube's Belly, Thwomp's Volcano, Vim Factory, they'll feel very strange enough when you realize that this was a land before time, which I guess would be like the 60s or something here, I don't know. Now, Partners in Time may make you want to go back in time and change a few decisions. Maybe not buying Bitcoin in 2010, maybe that embarrassing thing you said that no one else remembers but you think they do, or maybe buying the wrong chair. But if you want to avoid at least one of those regrets while you still can, that's where the sponsor of today's video, Boolies, comes in. Specifically, their EP500 chair. The EP500 is an ergonomic chair designed for long gaming, editing, or work sessions with a big focus on comfort and adjustability. It features adaptive lumbar support that adjusts to your back, adjustable armrest, customizable seat depth and headrest positioning, and a reclining backrest with a built-in footrest for when you want to lean back between sessions. It also uses a breathable hybrid mesh material that's designed to keep you cool and comfortable during extended use. And the overall design is made to support a wide range of body types and sitting positions, so you could adjust it to whatever feels best for you. If you'd like to learn more or check one out for yourself, you can find links down in the description below. Huge thanks to Boolies for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the hot takes. Just gonna get right into it since a lot of you already know this one. Super Paper Mario is my favorite Mario RPG. And before anyone actually says, well, actually, it's not an RPG. RPGs do not have to have a turn-based combat. It has the best story in any Mario game, and I'm sure someone's hot take is that the story isn't good, but I mean, saying the story is good is not a hot take. But there's also people who say Sticker Star is the best Paper Mario, so clearly we all have very different hot takes on this. This game has always just connected with me way more than the others. Count Bleck is still one of my favorite Mario villains because the game actually gives him more of a backstory. I know a lot of people like to glaze King Ali in Origami King, but I don't know, I think his motivation is kind of stupid. Also, in Origami King, for example, a lot of the bosses are just literally office supplies. Here you actually have a bunch of different characters with different motivations, different personalities. Besides Count Bleck, like you have Dementio, who's a fan favorite, and I said this in another video when I was right, but there's going to be people who are watching this video now who have Dementio profile pictures. There's Ochunks, there's Mimi, there's Francis, who was actually referenced in an Invincible comic in 2007. But anyway, they don't feel like cartoonish villains. Like, they feel like real characters with actual motivations. And even as a kid, I really liked the story in this, and as an adult, I've appreciated it even more. But that's just the story. You don't play a Mario game for the stories. So that's not why this is my favorite Mario RPG, even though that certainly helps it. But you just go to so many unique locations in here. Like, you have a world made entirely out of pixels, a Japanese-inspired kingdom with samurai characters, the Underwear and Over There, which are basically the Mario version of the Afterlife. You have a literal sweatshop in this game, and the developers try to troll you by giving you the option of spending hours collecting rubies when all you really need to do is is find a code, and there have been people who've actually spent hours doing this. The music here is fantastic. Like, I don't know if I want to make that my hot take that this is my favorite soundtrack because I need to listen to them all again, but it definitely might be. The 3D mechanic is something that probably could have been a little better, but I still love it. I also just like the gameplay here. Yes, it's very easy, and yes, it's probably my biggest criticism of it, but just because it's a platformer doesn't make it bad, and I really do like that aspect of the game, even though a lot of people hate it. Before I get into this, I just want to talk about the carrot minigame. I got Inside Story when it came out in 2009, and I was looking forward to it for a while because I played Partners in Time, I played Superstar Saga before this, and I was really looking forward to this game. I played it every day after school, and then I got stuck on the carrot minigame. And a lot of people say it's very easy, and you know what, if I went back to it now, it probably would be a lot easier, since I'd say I'm at least a little smarter than when I was like 6 or 7 years old. But yeah, that kind of brought the experience down for me when I was a kid, and it definitely has affected my opinion of this game, even though I still do love it. So anyway, Bowser's Inside Story is probably the most polished game, and I do get why it tops a lot of people's Mario and Luigi rankings. Fawful is back, the writing is great, playing as Bowser while Mario and Luigi are running around inside him is a really fun idea. The Bowser sections are definitely the highlight. The overworld as Bowser feels different from anything in the previous games, and the Bowser specific battles have a lot of variety. Like, this is my favorite part of the game. The Mario and Luigi sections inside Bowser are just a lot weaker to me. Like, I feel like it kind of drags. I don't like the battles as much. I feel like a lot of the tasks are kind of tedious, like where you have to do that like Electron game, whatever it's called. But anyway, my hot take here, and I know this is a hot take, is that I like Partners in Time better than this game. Do I think it's an objectively better game? No. In fact, I would say if I'm looking at these objectively, I would probably say Bowser's Inside Story is the better game. But just going on my personal opinion, I enjoyed Partners in Time more. I don't know if it's because I like the locations better in Partners in Time, if I like the enemies better, if I like the music better, but even my most recent replays, which were in like the late 2010s, I still enjoyed Partners in Time better for whatever reason. I've gotten a lot of criticism on this before, and all I could say is I'm a random guy in the internet. Does me enjoying a game differently than you actually affect you at all? If the answer is yes, I highly suggest you just take a break from the internet for a bit. Sticker Star is a game you can have a lot of hot takes on. A popular hot take, I guess, which is kind of an oxymoron to say, would be that Sticker Star is good, and I'm not going to say that. I do not like Sticker Star. What I will say is that a lot of people have the biggest issue in this game as just the horrible combat with no progression, the world map design, but that's not the biggest issue for me. The biggest issue is the lack of original characters and environments. Like, I legitimately think if you add in unique characters and unique environments, this game becomes a lot better. Yes, the battle system would still suck, because if you don't have XP in a battle system, there's literally no incentive, but at least if you replace these characters with more unique ones and had new environments that were fun to explore and maybe just added in some more story elements, this game would be significantly better. Like, look at Super Paper Mario, for example. Now, I like the gameplay, but a lot of people really don't, but they still really like that game because of everything about it, because they love the story and the characters and the environments. No one cares to see a million Goombas and Koopa Troopas and have every NPC be a toad. Like, even if this game had the Thousand Year Door style combat, which is the most popular in the series, I don't think many people would still like it, because it just feels so bland and uninspired. I don't know, is this even considered a hot take that this is the biggest issue in the game? Mario & Luigi Dream Team is a game I have a lot of mixed opinions on. I really do like it, but the biggest issue for me is that the game just goes on a little too long. But anyway, my hot take here is that the dream mechanics make some of the best battles in this entire series. I think a lot of people like the dream battles, but I really love them. Like, I love the dream battles, like more than probably 90% of the other battles in this series. I don't think the dream sections themselves are the best, but I love the battles, and that's mostly because of the attacks you have. Like, the Luigi dream attacks here are just hilarious. Like, whoever would have thought there'd be a ball of like 100 Luigis rolling, or just a giant Luigi stack. Then you have the giant Luigi fight, and that's considered one of the dream battles, even though it's different. And I do like that too, and I see a lot of people hate on it. Like, the combat still feels fine in the real world, but I was trying to get into more fights when I was in the dream world just because it was so fun. Honestly, if this game didn't have a tutorial longer than a Metal Gear cutscene, and it was just a little shorter, I think this game would be seen as a lot better. This game gets left off almost every Mario RPG ranking, and I almost never hear anyone talk about it, so I'm gonna include it. It's technically an RPG, but personally just not my type of game. I had fun with it for a bit, but couldn't really get into it. The gameplay is basically Puzzles and Dragons with new Super Mario Brothers elements slapped on. You match color orbs on a board to build attacks, you put together a team with different abilities. Don't go into this expecting much of a story. Like, this is literally new Super Mario Brothers with the Puzzles and Dragons gameplay, it's nothing else. But the core loop actually is surprisingly addictive for a bit, even though it's not really for me. And it's really hard to have a hot take on this because no one really plays this. Like, I wonder how many people have actually played this game in 2026, and I wonder if it's even over 100 people. But I guess my hot take is that this game deserves, I guess, some more attention, because it is generally a fun game for people who like this style, and you could find it for, what, like 15, 20 bucks? Also, I don't think a single person person mentioned this when I asked for hot takes, so Paper Jam is another game I really don't like. Like, it is Mario and Luigi Sticker Star, and it's hard to find a hot take here because I feel like most of my opinions on this game are pretty standard. The Toad hide and seek sucks. The papercraft battles, while cool in theory, just don't play out well. The story is bad. The lack of unique characters and environments are bad. But I'm gonna have a similar hot take as I did in Dream Team and say that the trio attacks are actually really fun here. And I think it's just because it takes some inspiration from Mario and Luigi Dream Team Dream battles, where sometimes you'll just have a bunch of copies of Paper Mario. Like, I don't know, I don't have too much to say about this, but the only thing that kept me going through this game was that the combat was actually pretty fun. I mean, I guess at least we can say that this game still has progression. Like, the combat still is very much a Mario and Luigi game, and it's the rest of it. Sticker Star was not so fortunate. Just gonna come out and say this one, I don't really care for the humor much here. It has funny moments, but a lot of people use the writing to rate the game higher, and for me it's like, okay, that's fine. How about the rest of the game? People overrate the humor because of how low the bar was after Sticker Star, and when the comparison is Sticker Star, having any personality at all looks like a massive improvement. But that's not the same as the game actually being good. The battle system's still pretty pointless. You select a card on the gamepad, fill it with paint, swipe up, rinse and repeat. No XP again, or I'm sorry, you get like a little paint from battling, but that's pretty pointless. Bowser's the villain again. Well, I mean, he's possessed by black paint, but still. And again, the environments still feel uninspired. Like, it kind of just took a really bad game and then just made it somewhat tolerable. And since this is a game people really wanted to have a good entry in, I feel like a lot of people kind of just said, well, this game has a lot of good humorous moments, like Huey's funny. This game's actually really good and charming. And if you feel that way, that's fine, but it only does so much when the game around it is just not that very good. And I've said that like 3 different times in this video. This crossover is actually really good, and I was surprised because when this game got announced, I was just kind of shocked that this was a thing that was happening. Nintendo at this time was definitely experimental. Like, Mario and Rabbids in an XCOM style tactical combat game just shouldn't have worked. It does work though. I'm not even usually into tactical RPGs, but the combat here was pretty fun. The story is thin and it feels more like a gauntlet of battles than a grand adventure, but the combat was good enough that I kept playing anyway. Mario and Rabbids was actually built around the combat, and something like Paper Mario I feel actually had an RPG adventure with combat, so I guess you could say different expectations. The soundtrack here is my actual hot take. Grant Kirkhope did a consistent job, and I understand why people love it. Like, the music fits every moment well, and Kirkhope is an incredibly talented composer, but the tracks here work perfectly while you're playing them and they kind of disappear from your memory after. Like, pretty much every Mario RPG before this, barring a couple, but I just thought like the soundtrack was good, but just not super memorable, and a lot of people have this as a top Mario RPG soundtrack. I know someone's gonna comment saying, well, what do you think about this? And that's kind of my point. Like, yes, it has good tracks, but none of them really stood out for me that much. Like, yeah, I might listen to one and be like, you know, that's pretty good, but I don't know, it just feels consistent without really having a bunch of bangers. Gonna have a hot take for this one, and it's that Origami King is mid. So with something like Sticker Star and Color Splash, that's a pretty safe opinion to have, but a lot of people really love Origami King. Like, I see a lot of people have this as a top Paper Mario game, but for me, the ring combat just kind of kills any reason to replay it, and I had to for a video fairly recently, and I did not enjoy it. You have to stand in the middle of rotating rings with enemies scattered around them, and it just feels the same every time, so you literally should just run past every fight. It does do some things better, like the music here is incredible, the world looks great, but there's still not too many unique locations. Yes, there's some, but like compare this to like the 1000-Year Door Super Paper Mario, it doesn't even come close. There's partners here, like kind of, like you have Bobby, who's a fan favorite, but he's not even with you for that long. There's a couple others. I think Olivia's a good character, and like I mentioned earlier in the video, I think King Ali is completely overrated. I think that his motivations just make absolutely no sense, and I'm not going to spoil the game here in case you want to play it, but can someone just try to explain to me how it makes any sense? Like, it still very much feels like a Sticker Star game, and I don't really appreciate that formula. Like, that's not the type of game I would ever play if this didn't have Paper Mario in the title. It's a step in the right direction, but we still have a long way to go until we actually have a return to form Paper Mario game. And I'm not talking about the 1000-Year Door remake. Another thing I gotta say, and this goes for the previous 2 Paper Mario games, is that even though this game looks good visually, I just don't really like the style that much. Like, they've just been trying to make it more and more papercraft. And something I liked about the first 3 games is that it kind of took that as a style, but they didn't go over the top to make every single sentence have something paper related, and didn't try to make the whole world just look paper mache. But these 3 games have just been repeating the same paper jokes over and over again, and it still has the fundamental issues that Sticker Star and Color Splash have. Not gonna lie, for Sparks of Hope, I really had trouble coming up with a hot take, and I don't really know if I have one. So I'll just say that I think the progression here is worse than Kingdom Battle. Like, you can upgrade your weapon, but it just feels like you have a lot less customization than in Kingdom Battle. Now, again, I don't know if this is a hot take, I just don't really know what else to say about this one if I'm being honest. And finally, we are at Brothership, because I'm not gonna talk about the remakes in this video. But anyway, I guess a hot take I could say is that I don't think Brothership is a bad game, since a lot of people do hate this. But my hot take here is that the side quests just gave me no motivation to do them. Like, we've had side quests in Mario and Luigi games before, but Brothership has way more of them, and they're much more prominent. Like, a lot of them can also only be completed before certain story events, so the game is constantly giving you FOMO if you don't do these. For the first couple, I was like, oh, I don't want to miss out on something that I won't be able to do later on. And then after like the first 2 or 3, I literally don't know if I did more than maybe 1 or 2 throughout the rest of the game. They just felt so boring to me. Like, it was just going back to old islands, usually just finding something, and none of them just felt interesting. Like, they all felt kind of like filler, and this game is already long enough. My biggest gripe with this game is that it just goes on for way too long. Yeah, the tutorial's long, but this game can take you like 40, 50 hours, even not doing many side quests. And I've seen people talk about how they love the side quests for this game, but I just don't. Now I'm going to get to some of your hot takes, but before I do, if you want to be one of my first 15,000 subscribers, be sure to press that subscribe button. If Superstar Saga didn't have that one part where you have to collect pieces of the Superstar or whatever would be the best one, but it kills the pacing so bad it makes you hate fighting most enemies, I said the pacing was really good in Superstar Saga. Was this my favorite part of the game? No, but I don't know, it didn't really affect the game much for me. Definitely a valid view though. Paper Mario the Origami King is the most underrated Mario game in the franchise. For me, it's even better than 64. I'm gonna disagree with this one. I think if anything, it's very overrated. But again, these are all people's hot takes that they're entitled to. I'm not saying they're wrong, I'm just saying that personally I disagree. So I do want to make that clear. Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle is the best Mario RPG, no contest. I mean, I disagree, but very bold opinion. Definition of a hot take. Super Paper Mario is the best out of all of them. We already know how I feel about that. Partners in Time is the best one. It's my second favorite, so don't fully agree, but I see where you're coming from. As a general statement, Super Paper Mario is an S-tier game, and the story makes me shed a tear every single time I play it. The writers did an excellent job, and I'm a little upset it was received poorly, and a game like it was never really attempted again. So it actually wasn't received poorly, it actually got pretty good reviews, but I am very sad that we've never gotten a sequel or anything. Mario RPG for the SNES may be the first, but also the best. The art and gameplay cannot be topped, not to mention the story. I just think it's hard with the art style just because it's such an old game to really be the best when we have so many more stylized games, but if that's your preference, that's cool. And the story, I don't really think there's much for the story here. Like, it's kind of your standard Mario RPG plot. Like, I think that Super Paper Mario, Thousand Year Door, Bowser's Inside Story, just to name off the top of my head, are better than this. Paper Mario Color Splash is an incredibly underrated game. Yeah, the bosses aren't the greatest in the franchise, but the atmosphere is peak, and the music even more so. I also kind of like Sticker Star, so I don't think it's an underrated game. I think that the atmosphere is kind of lacking too. I will agree with you though that I really do like the music. I don't care what people say, but if Sticker Star had a progression mechanic, it would have been a really good game. And I kind of went over this where I said that even if the game had a progression mechanic, I don't think it would have been that good just because it just lacks a lot of the charm of the Paper Mario series. Sparks of Hope is the best Mario RPG from Switch that isn't a remake. I don't disagree that much. I think that Sparks and Open Brothership are pretty close for me. Bowser Jr.'s Journey is underrated. I actually really haven't played much of Bowser Jr.'s Journey, so I can't really give an opinion on it, but I can definitely see this being the case since almost no one played this game. Super Paper Mario has good gameplay that's really only bogged down by not having good enough controls to do more interesting platforming. I wouldn't say the controls are bad, it controls perfectly fine. I think the issue is that the platforming is still very easy, along with the combat, and they probably could have utilized the 3D flip mechanic a little better. Hot take, Paper Mario 64 did things better than Thousand Year Door in terms of speed. Not sure what you mean by that, but if you mean the actual like moving around, I do miss the spin move, whatever it was called, from Paper Mario 64. Paper Mario Color Splash is a good game if you don't compare it with the first 3. I don't really agree with that. I do think if you don't compare it with the first 3, you might have a more favorable view, but I think regardless, it's not that great of a game. Mario & Rabbids series is underrated. I think I've seen so many people say it's underrated, though, that I think it's kind of just properly rated. Thousand Year Doors Chapter 4 is an amazing chapter. Sure, there's a good bit of backtracking, but the chapter itself has an amazing villain and theme. I don't think that's really a hot take. I think a lot of people, from what I've seen, really love Chapter 4. Paper Mario the Origami King has the most emotional segments, like with Bobby. It was the only Mario RPG that made me genuinely sad. Also, Origami King is the best Paper Mario, so we know how I feel on that. I will say, though, that this game has a couple emotional moments. 1000 Year Door is one of the worst RPGs I ever played. I mean, if that's how you feel, but I think looking at it from a game design perspective, it's kind of hard to argue that, but if that's how you felt while playing it, then your opinion's valid. I really like Brothership. It's slow paced and linear, but so are a lot of RPGs, so I can't really say I care. I think it has the best combat system of any of these games, and the plugs are fun to use and manage. So the combat is fun here, that's not the issue for me, but it's just so slow paced for me, which is a bigger issue. The 1000 Year Door is an outstanding game, but it shouldn't be the standard for all Mario RPGs. I'm glad Nintendo's trying different things with different games. I disagree. If we look at the Mario and Luigi series, all of the games have had the same basic formula. Yes, we had games shake things up, but they all very much feel like Mario and Luigi games. With Paper Mario, like you have the first 2, Super Paper Mario, which is a completely different game, but really the most 3 recent Paper Mario games have all had the same basic style, so they really haven't tried anything that new, like that groundbreaking, I feel like. I'm just gonna read one of these ones. Partners in Time should have gotten a remake on the Switch. I agree. I would love to see Partners in Time remade, but I'd rather see like a collection of the Mario and Luigi games here. Paper Jam is one of my favorite Mario RPGs, literally no joke, I'm serious. And this kind of just goes to show that everyone's gonna have a different preference when it comes to games. Like for me, I completely disagree with this, but why does a random person on the internet having a different view on a game affect me in any way? So I think it's cool to see that someone really likes a game that I personally don't like. I prefer the way Luigi works in Mario and Luigi Brothership rather than always having him attributed to the B button. Definitely a hot take. I disagree. I loved when it felt like the characters were more distinct, but I will give you credit for having one of the hottest takes here. Partners in Time is extremely overhated, and it's mostly because you have to control 4 different characters, and the story is not as good as Bowser's Inside Story, but does not deserve the hate it gets. I don't know if that's necessarily why it's hated. I think it's more because it's linear, because it removed bros attacks, because a lot of people don't like the time travel mechanic, and yeah, I think a lot of it is because people compare it to Bowser's Inside Story, which they like better. So I kind of agree with this. Bowser's Inside Story, Dream Team, and Brothership get unnecessary hate and are masterpieces. I can't really call this a hot take. Outside of Brothership, I can understand, but Bowser's Inside Story is universally beloved, and Dream Team is still pretty loved as well, so I wouldn't really call this a hot take. Kingdom Battle is better than Sparks of Hope. I don't even know if this is that hot of a take. I feel like it's kind of split what game people like better. I think there's things to love about both games, and it just comes down to what you prefer. Brothership was the best Mario and Luigi game since Bowser's Inside Story. I like Dream Team better, but I don't think this is that crazy of a take. Paper Mario 1 and 2 are fantastic. Every Paper Mario game has soul-crushing, boring, unoriginal combat. I think Super Paper Mario is fine for what it is. It's not really trying to focus on combat, but yeah, for the recent 3 games, I do agree with this. Mario and Luigi games are way better than the Paper Mario games, even though Paper Mario the Thousand Years is my favorite game ever. This is interesting, so let me know in the comments. Do you think that Paper Mario or Mario and Luigi is better as a series? Because I don't know if this is a hot take. Personally, I'd say I prefer Paper Mario because of the first 3 games, but I think Mario and Luigi has been a little more consistent. Let's read one of these. Paper Jam is better than Dream Team. I don't agree with that. I think that in every way, Paper Jam was kind of a step down. Thousand Year Door Remake was the weakest game of the Mario RPG Renaissance from 2023 to 2024. Definitely a hot take. Completely disagree, because if we look at 2023 and 2024, where we have Thousand Year Door Remake, the Super Mario RPG Remake, and Brothership, all I could say is you certainly had a hot take. Mario plus Rabbids shouldn't exist. I disagree. It's not even my favorite thing or anything, but there's clearly a lot of care put into these games. A lot of people love them, so I think just saying that they shouldn't exist isn't a good take in my opinion, but that's just my thought. So this one has a lot, but I just want to talk about a couple. Color Splash is never funny, the jokes are so forced and it's usually paper puns. Kind of agree on this one. That's literally almost exactly what I was talking about. And Brothership has the best story of any Mario game, also being in my top 3. I just think it's hard to argue that this is a better story than Super Paper Mario. Origami King bosses aren't that bad, as in them being office supplies. I guess it's better than just being generic characters, but you can't tell me like Stapler is the same as like a Thousand Year Door or a Super Paper Mario boss. And anyway, those are just my hot takes on each game, as well as some from the community. Again, these are all hot takes. I try to respect everyone's opinion as long as they're being respectful of others, so I do keep that in mind because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of hot takes in the comments here, so just be respectful to your fellow commenters. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and also check out some of these videos here because I talk about the Mario RPGs a lot, and if you want to give me more of your hot takes, come join the Discord. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.